Welcome to Mach 10 Sports in this February 15th, 2024 episode. Again, I am your host, Dave Shoemate, broadcasting live from the SEC Unfiltered platform. Again, catch us on Monday and Thursday nights, live show, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Here to cover SEC football, basketball, and baseball. Former personnel guy, worked in the SEC at 4 different schools. In football, so I feel like I kind of have a good lay of the land from a standpoint of the football, but especially I also like to bring you the content here from a basketball and baseball coverage as well. But we got a lot to cover. It's just us today. We usually have a guest, but we're going to roll it out. We're going to go about 45 minutes, an hour. We're going to dive deep. You know, sometimes I love having guests. I absolutely love having guests. I love the dialogue back and forth, the great personalities, the great intel that we do bring from a Mach 10 Sports, from an SEC Unfiltered standpoint, but also like when we dig deeper. And sometimes we're on a time constraint. It's tougher to it's tougher to get as in depth on the certain segments that you want to get to. But we're here, so we've got that opportunity today. Like I said, we got a lot to cover. We're going to specifically around the SEC segment. We got a lot to cover from that perspective. Sean Elliott becoming the 4th Group of 5 head coach to leave to become an assistant or coordinator, joining, well, I shouldn't say Group of 5, 4th head coach. So you got Maurice Lindquist, who's the head coach at Buffalo. Now he's the secondaries coach at Alabama. Kane Womack, the head coach at South Alabama, is now the defensive coordinator at Alabama. Then you had, obviously, Chip Kelly going over from UCLA now to be the OC at Ohio State. And now you got Sean Elliott leaving Georgia State, all-time winningest coach at Georgia State in Georgia State history, is leaving to go back to South Carolina. I don't think his family ever moved there, but he's heading back to be the tight ends coach, run game coordinator. We'll briefly touch on that. Well, also, I'm going to rank the teams that FanDuel the other day, in case you missed it. We talked about it on Monday's episode, released their over-under win total for every SEC team. We have 4 teams that have an over-under win total of 9.5. We got Alabama, first-year head coach Kalen DeBoer. We got LSU, has some question marks. Have to revamp the offense, which they should be fine. They hired Blake Baker, new DC. Can he get that defense turned around? Missouri, can they go back-to-back years of double-digit wins? That's what it'll take, the over. That's what Vegas is talking about. If you take them over, you're saying Eli Drinkwitz is going to get his 2nd winning season in a row. Remember, this past year, the 11-win total, most in school history, was the first winning season for Eli Drinkwitz. Can they follow that up after having to replace the defense coordinator in Blake Baker? And then the other team we talked about there that was it, wasn't it? Yeah, Alabama, Missouri, LSU. Yeah, and that was it. Those are the ones that we are talking about specifically. Ole Miss. Ole Miss will be the other team we'll talk about too. They're over under 9.5. So I'm going to go over all 4 schedules and what teams I trust the most, and we'll rank them in order. And the SEC going to a 9-game schedule. Inevitably, if you follow college athletics, the SEC in general, you saw this coming. I mean, back in 2012, they voted on it. When you had A&M and Missouri coming to the league, Nick Saban got voted down 1-13, I think, and no. Nick Saban was the only coach wanting to make it a 9-game conference schedule. Now, he kind of went back and forth on that once he found out who their permanent opponents were going to be when we were adding Oklahoma and Texas in the league. He saw it was going to be LSU, Auburn, and Tennessee, and he's like, hold up now. But initially, he was one of the few who wanted to go to 9. So give him that. Then we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of conference play on the hardwood. I think it's a 3-team race. South Carolina fans are going to kill me. I put them 4th in the power rankings. Last night, it wasn't their best effort. I think Auburn probably played their best game of the season. Auburn probably would have beaten anybody last night. They would have beat anybody, maybe an NBA team. I'm kidding when I'm saying that. I'm not one of those guys. I don't think the best college team can beat the worst pro team in whatever sport. I'm kidding. But Auburn would have beat anybody last night. UConn be damned last night. Purdue be damned last night. Arizona be damned last night. Auburn was winning last night. Shot 60% from 3. But again, I think it's a 3-team race: Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee. South Carolina fans may disagree with me, but we'll see. But I'm going to go over the 7 games that's going to have the most impact on the championship race. And then it's opening weekend on the diamond in baseball. All our teams are in action. I'm going to go over those series. Some series are going to be a lot better than others. You got Tennessee in the Shriners Children's Classic in Dallas at Globe Life Stadium where the Rangers play. Getting a little Big 12 taste. So they got to match up with Texas Tech, Baylor, and Oklahoma in order. I think it's Texas Tech, Oklahoma, and Baylor. starting tomorrow. But everybody, baseball all day, college basketball all day, Saturday. It's here. We got SEC sports all till really. I mean, I expect SEC to have some teams in Omaha for baseball. So all the way through June, really expect to see the SEC on every day, every weekend. A lot of times during midweek now of baseball. It's one of my favorite times of the year. People are upset football's over. Oh, we got no more football. And believe me, that's really where I made my bread and butter. I'm a football guy. But SEC basketball and SEC baseball are at a high level as well, and they're fun to keep up with, and we're going to bring you that action. But around the SEC, let's get started. Kentucky hiring new OC Bush Hamden coming over from Boise State. Other names mentioned for the job: Buster Faulkner, Georgia Tech's OC; Tommy Reese, former Alabama OC. But I like this hire. I mean, Boise State, his probably best statistic last year. They finished 6th nationally in rushing offense in 2023, averaging 214 yards per game. 31st in scoring offense last season. That would rank 31st in offense. 31st in the country in FBS is what I mean. Then 33rd in red zone deep offense. I like to go over red zone offense. I think that kind of what separates the better coordinators, because that's what the game kind of is now. It's kind of like the NFL. People are giving up yards between the 20s. It's who can hold people to field goals and buckle down. So that's where he finished 33rd in red zone. His alma mater was Boise. And you can tell at his press conference today, this was a big decision for him. You can tell he really reviewed Kentucky's personnel. And to be fair to Boise State, they're one of the big hot group of 5 names who could be a playoff team, the group of 5 representative in the playoff team next year. Seems very optimistic about Kentucky's offensive personnel, like Brock Vandergriff, Tavion Robinson coming back, Dane Key, Berrien Brown. They got weapons, so I can see why he would take this. I think there's a lot to work with. I'm fired up about it. He was honest. He's like, this is one of the hardest decisions of my life, leaving my alma mater. We should be pretty good next year when he's talking about Boise. But he looked at Kentucky's personnel, figured, hey, we can go make this thing right. We can go get good on offense. Maybe be that key in the pen. It kind of gets Kentucky back to winning 9 games. Maybe. Man, I'm not saying that. Tougher SEC now with Texas and Oklahoma coming in. But I like this hire. I like how optimistic he was about the personnel. If I'm a Kentucky fan, I know I mentioned it today. I'd have been fired up by the hire. People are like, well, everybody wins the press conference. Have you ever seen Les Miles' opening press conference when he took the job at Kansas? Not everybody wins the press conference. I believe in you. If I'm a Kentucky fan, be fired up about this hire with Bush. Moving on. Here we go, guys. I talked about it. Sean Elliott to South Carolina. Another head coach left their head coach chair to be a position coach. I mentioned it. Chip Kelly going to UCLA, Ohio State. Mentioned it earlier. Kane Womack, Maurice Linguist, both leaving their group of 5 jobs, South Alabama and Buffalo, to go both to be at Alabama. Kane Womack coordinating it. And now you got Sean Elliott leaving a successful stint at Georgia State. Again, the most successful coach, all-time winningest coach in Georgia State history. And again, the program started back in 2010, so it's nothing crazy. But still, all-time winningest coach. Had been at South Carolina before, I think from 2010 to – I know we got South Carolina 14 to 15. Maybe 1 year there with Muschamp, but really there through the Spurrier area. Good Spurrier era. High energy, good recruiter, good technician. He's got the tight ends coach, run game coordinator, but you got to think he's going to work a little bit with the offensive line. That's kind of his nitty gritty. It's where he made his bread and butter, his nuts and bolts right there. So I would expect I like the hire. Now I was talking to somebody today. I don't really think this takes them from a potential 5-7 team to 7-5 team. But I think it could be like a 1-game difference. And people are like, what's the difference between 1 and 2? I mean, it's going to a bowl game and not going to a bowl game. A 2-game difference of just hiring a tight ends coach, and I know he has head coaching experience and stuff like that, isn't that big of a difference, in my opinion. I really don't think it is. But he'll bring some energy, some toughness. He's going to be passionate about South Carolina's football. I heard his family never even moved in his 7 years, Georgia State. They stayed. They had a house in Columbia. So I think this was just the perfect job, perfect opportunity. But again, as someone who works in college football, it's a tough break for his staff at Georgia State. I mean, you didn't get fired. You may not lose your job because of what you did on the field or your performance. It's because your head coach went and took a job that was better for him. And it's not anybody's fault. I see some people being like, you can't do that to your staff. No, he's got to do what's best for him. But it's also, I think 2 things can be right at the same time, or 2 things can be true at the same time. I think as a society, not going off on a tangent, old man yelling, because I think we forget about that. Sean Elliott could have made a good decision for him and his family, going to be the tight ends, run game coordinator. And I think this is an advantage for South Carolina. And it can suck at the same time for the staff, who not everyone's going to get to retain their job. Not because of what they didn't do in the field. It's just an unfortunate circumstance. It kind of is what it is. But I think Shane Beamer's hired a pretty good staff so far in South Carolina, if I'm being completely honest. I love the James Coley hire. Georgia fans may get on me a little bit, but I actually really like the James Coley hire. Uh, good ability to recruit, good developer, will be coaching the receivers over there. I'm pulling up, who is that? Special teams guy. Sorry, South Carolina fans are out there. I really like the special teams hire. And you lost Pete Limbos, and I thought he was one of the better coaches on staff. Oh, Joe DeCamillis. I like him a lot. I think he was with the Rams when they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and Sean McVay, who they beat. They beat Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. So he's a special teams coordinator for South Carolina. Then I like that hire. I think Shane Beamer is kind of under the radar. Hear me out. For you South Carolina fans listening, hear me out. One kind of the offseason and hires. I was very underwhelmed with some of his initial hires. Again, I liked Montario Hardesty as a running back at Tennessee. Didn't like him as a coach. He had his initial offensive coordinator hire, Marcus Satterfield at Nebraska. Not a great hire. To see what Dow Logans can do this year. Can he kind of develop, get Lenore Sellers going? But I think he's upgraded in coaching staff there. Maybe you have to do a little something with Clayton White on defense, but I like James Coley. I like the Sean Elliott hire, absolutely. And then I like what he did on special teams, did the best he could to replace old Pistol Pete Lambeau and Joe DeCamillis from coming over from the St. Louis, or from the Los Angeles Rams. So I like that hire a lot. Give Shane Beamer credit on that. But then transitioning over, before we get into the teams I trust from an SEC standpoint, the over-under 9.5 win total, the SEC looks like, according to Texas AD Chris Del Conte, is most likely going to go to a 9-game conference schedule. We saw that. Looks like it's going to be an 8-game conference schedule through 25, or this year heading into 24 and 25. 26 would be the first year they can move to a 9-game schedule. I mentioned it back in 2012. Nick Saban was the only one to 13 in voting that everybody else kind of wanted to stay at 8. But again, I get it. Teams like Kentucky, Mississippi State don't want to play that extra conference game because that could be the difference between 5 and 7, 6 and 6. Now I think with the playoffs coming a little bit, bowl games, I love watching bowl games. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those guys that says bowl games is bad for college football. That's not me at all. There's football, and I'm one of those guys I'm watching, even in December. Even around December 17th, 18th, when you're doing your Christmas shopping, I'll watch it. But I think some of these teams it's a little watered down a little bit now. And it's not as like, hey, come on, we're going to get more money playing that 9th game instead of 8th game. Bowl game, be damned a little bit. But if we're doing away with divisions, I absolutely agree with this. If we're going to get the best 2 teams to go play in Atlanta, if we're still going to play the SEC championship game, money behind it, this was inevitable. You had to do this. If you're going to end up splitting the SEC East and West into one big conference now, and we're going to take the top 2 teams to meet in early December, you had to play an extra 9 game. As many times as you can play each other within the league. I think it's good for the guys. We don't have a lot of retention on these rosters. Let's be what it is now. People are leaving all the time. But I think if a kid stays from his freshman year through his senior year, unheard of now, even 5th year, but let's just say he does, he's going to play good chance at every venue in the SEC, which I think is awesome for the players. I know that's not around a lot, but it is what it is. I've gotten questions, why wait? Why not just go now? Well, I think the SEC can punt because they can wait and see how the 12-team playoff impacts the league as a whole for the next 2 years. Get a feel of the lay of the land, like, hey, did we lose a team because we didn't go 9 because they went 9-3? Did they just finish 13 or 14th? Just missed it. Like, do we need to go that 9th game, or we think we can get enough teams in to get our bang for our buck with 8? I think that. And then obviously the money. That's what it's all about, guys. It is what it is. Even schools that favor a 9-game schedule, such as Georgia or Alabama, or LSU or whoever, Texas, have wanted ESPN to increase its payout in exchange in general for a while now. The television contract, which was signed, just remember this, about 6 months ago before Oklahoma and Texas announced they were joining, just has a prorata clause, which means the payout goes up by an equal amount to what the current 14 schools were getting. So SEC officials have argued that 8 more conference games, that would result in a 9-game conference schedule. So if we go to 9 games, if every team plays 9 conference games, that's 8 more games to the league. That's worth more money. But ESPN, dealing with Disney-ordered cutbacks, is not agreed so far. So the SEC is essentially saying, we're not going to go play that extra 9th game or those extra 8 games that would account for the league if you're not going to pay us more. And I think ultimately ESPN will. But I think this is kind of a cold war right now between ESPN and the SEC, from a standpoint of, I would say, The SEC, like I said, waiting to see how this will affect a couple of their teams. Like if they get a team left out at the 13, 14 spot and they're waiting, like, hey, we're not working for free, guys. You want that extra 9 game? We're going to give you the extra 8 conference SEC on SEC games. You're going to pay for it. So I don't blame it. So we'll see. I think we ultimately get to it. Sounds like it, according to Texas AD Chris Del Conte. It's interesting. Texas, the new kid on the block, AD is going to go be the first to kind of say, yeah, we're moving forward with this. I promise. I thought that was kind of funny, and is what it was. I kind of thought that was funny, but getting into it, transitioning, again, according to FanDuel, released, I think on Sunday, they released all 16 of the SEC teams over-under win totals. 1 second, let me get a cup of water in. And there was 4 teams, I noticed, had an over-under win total of 9.5. 4, that would be Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, and Missouri. So I kind of just want to go through it. Let me pull up the screen here and kind of go through what schedules I like the most and who do I trust the most to hit that over win total. I'm going to go 1 through 4, give you an order. I thought it was funny. 4 teams in this league, which have difficult schedules, some winnable games, some toss-ups. It'll be interesting. First-year staffs, Alabama. But let me share the screen here for you so I can pull up Alabama's schedule. All right, so starting off, Alabama opens up at Western Kentucky. I think that's going to be a win. South Florida, they return trip to Tuscaloosa. I think that'll be a win. At Wisconsin, that's a big one for Kalen DeBoer then. But as of this moment, I'm going to give them a win. Georgia, maybe say a loss. Say loss at home. I know Georgia fans are like, until I see it, I don't believe it. Well, Georgia on paper, their top 40 is better than Alabama's top 40. Alabama's not going to have the depth that Alabama fans and college football are accustomed to seeing. That means they're not going to be good. Their starting 22 is going to be as good as anybody. But remember, top 40, not top 22. You hear us say that all the time if you're a frequent listener. Then at Vanderbilt should be winnable. South Carolina at home should be winnable. I think Tennessee is going to be a tough game on the road in Knoxville. When Tennessee starts to get it rolling, Neyland Stadium, one of the tougher places to play. It'll be interesting to see how a new staff, new quarterback handle that, or maybe not new quarterback, depending on what happens with Jalen Miller, but a new quarterback in a new system at least. Missouri, we'll talk about Missouri a little bit. And I don't want to get off. I don't want to preview Missouri a little bit, but I don't know if they can go match what they did this past year. And people are like, well, no kidding. They only lost 2 games. This is one of Eli Drinkwitz' biggest battles he's going to have all season is getting them motivated to come back. Remember, this was his first winning season at Missouri. 2020, I think 5-5, 21, 6-7, 22, 6-7. This past year, 11-2. How do they bounce back after probably being told all spring, winter, y'all are the man on campus, man. We're back. We're going to run the SEC. We're going to go compete, be in Atlanta next year. How does that team handle? I think people just assume they have all the offense stuff, which is awesome. With Brady Cook, Mookie Cooper, Luther Burden, guys like that, Theo Weiss. They have that. But I think they have some losses on defense. We'll talk about that in a minute. At LSU, tough game. Mercer, they should win. At Oklahoma, who knows? I thought their over-under in the SEC would be a little higher, but it's at 6.5. Then Auburn at home. Not really worried about that one. I like Alabama at home. It's early, but I don't really worry about it. But right now, I kind of like Alabama at 9-3, which, I mean, to our point, wouldn't hit the over-under win total. It wouldn't hit the over-under win total at all. So I would say right now, loss to Georgia, loss to Tennessee. And right now, I think you'd have to say they're probably going to go 1-1. I mean, split the at LSU, at Oklahoma. I mean, again, Oklahoma, kind of like Billy Bowman and the guys coming back, Woody Washington and them outside on the corner. I like the way the defense will be in the third year for Brent Venables. But at Oklahoma, I'll say 9-3 for Bama right now. So I'm going to take the under. Call me crazy. I may get killed. February 2nd. On February 2nd. February 15th. I would probably take the under. But let's go to the next one. LSU, a lot of other games as well. They're opening up with USC at Allegiant Stadium where they just played the Super Bowl in Vegas. Kind of a toss-up. Nickel State should be a win. At South Carolina, they should win that. UCLA at home with a new coach, they should win it. South Alabama, new coach, they should win. Ole Miss will be a tough game. Let's keep it at 4. At Arkansas, I think it's a trap game. Let's keep that at 4. A&M, let's say best case, they split those 2 road games at Arkansas and A&M. Bye week, Bama at home, it's a toss-up. At Florida, what's Florida doing at that point? Billy Napier could be fired at that point. Again, tough schedule, late in the year, November 16th. What's the motivation for the Gators? It's tough to say right now. Vanderbilt at home should be a win. Oklahoma. I mean, you would think they'd split at Florida, Oklahoma. I'm going to go under here too right now. I'm not really that sold on LSU right now. I'll be honest with you. I'm really not that sold on them right now. I'm like, because not saying they can't be good. I mentioned it. I was on Blake Ruffino's show, Are You Serious Sports, a big LSU show, SEC show. I straight up said on the show, the interior depth on their defensive line is not good enough to go compete for a true SEC championship and go win 10 games right now. It's not. And I don't think you're going to go fix that through a spring transfer window, because the monsters that you need to go compete, where you got to have 2 or 3 of them in the SEC to go compete for an SEC title that you're used to seeing, Georgia, Alabama, even LSU, when LSU's an SEC championship title contender, they have interior disruptors. I don't think you can go replace that in a spring portal window, because most of those guys that are Walter Nolans aren't walking in the street usually in a winter transfer portal window, or I should say December, much less in the spring and April. It just doesn't happen, like, because they're retained, because it's one of the more important positions in the sport of football outside of quarterback in a pass rusher. So I don't know if they go replace it. So I'm going to go under for LSU here. I mean, I see a couple losses. Could be USC. I think South Carolina's a trap one. Ole Miss, obviously. I think at Arkansas, I said that was one of the bigger trap. That's LSU's trap game of the season for them. At Arkansas, they always struggle there. 2 years ago, after beating Alabama, big win. Remember, Brian Kelly went for 2. Got it. And then without Harold Perkins, they don't go win the next week to go clinch the SEC West. So I think it's tough. At A&M, A&M has some of the better, more a 77% production, I think, returning. Who knows what A&M's doing? It's late in the year, injuries, still possible loss. Alabama at home, possible loss. Florida depends. Oklahoma at home to end the year. I'm going to go 9-3, 8-4 right now. So I've taken both Alabama and LSU under right now. And then we bring up the Ole Miss Rebels. Remember, we're talking about what 4 teams do I trust the most. That FanDuel came out with their over-under win totals for the 2024 season, and it's currently set for all 4 of these teams between Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, and Missouri at currently 9.5. Here's Ole Miss's schedule. I said LSU and Alabama right now as of February 15th, before spring ball, before the spring transfer portal window. I'm saying under for both of them. Under 10.5 or 9.5 win total. I think 9 wins for Alabama, 8 right now for LSU. Furman, I think, win. Middle win. At Wake Forest win. Georgia Southern at home win. I think non-con, Ole Miss has it set. That's 4 wins. That's 4 wins. Kentucky at home. I see Kentucky being a little improved, but I still think it should be a win at home. At South Carolina, again, I mentioned maybe at South Carolina being somewhat of a trap game for LSU. I think this one is for LSU, for Ole Miss. I think when you have a bunch of transfer portal heavy roster, you can lose some buy-in or focus, because they're going to be focused on this game that next week, that October 12th matchup at LSU. That's going to be a nationally kind of look-ahead game, because LSU is going to be trying to get revenge at home from their loss to Ole Miss this past year in Oxford. One LSU's 3 losses. I could just see this being a little look-ahead. Lane Kiffin's been in a Twitter war with LSU staffers. He's poked the bear. It's a maturity game on October 5th at South Carolina. So we'll see there, but I think they'll win. Let's just say they lose at LSU. I think they'll beat Oklahoma at home. They should beat Arkansas, depending on what Bobby Petrino and them do on offense, how improved they are. Let's just say win, though. Sorry about that. Georgia, let's say loss at home. Bye week. Again, some of these schedules we're looking at late in the year, everybody kind of has Florida. So it's kind of, what's Florida doing at that point? Second to last weekend of the season. Is Billy Napier gone? Is Florida already won 6-7 games? People are talking about, man, they did an incredible job against the schedule. But let's just say win. Ole Miss should be better than Florida. And they're hosting Mississippi State, first-year head coach Jeff Lebby. That should be a win for Ole Miss. I know everybody's like, rivalry game, anything can happen. That's one of the more overrated statements there are at times. Maybe in certain rivalries, but usually in the bigger ones. And in the SEC, Ole Miss, Mississippi State is one of the more underrated ones in the country, in my opinion. The hate's really there with they're both sides. Usually the better team wins in the Iron Bowl, Egg Bowl. I mean, Egg Bowl maybe has a few more upsets than the Iron Bowl, but usually the better team usually wins. But yeah, I think Ole Miss is going to hit this over. I don't see more than 2 losses, or shouldn't be on the schedule, because the out-of-conference slate isn't very difficult. I mean, Alabama goes at Wisconsin, LSU plays USC, and they get UCLA too, which I know new head coach. It's at LSU Tiger Stadium. They should win that. But I think Kentucky, South Carolina, I mean, at LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia, are really the only 3 games I think you could really – and I think they get 2 out of the 3 at home. They should get 1 of them. They lose 2, that's 10. Give me the over on Ole Miss right now. On February 15th, I like the Rebs with the over. Currently, according to FanDuel, they're 9.5 over under a win total. Give me the Rebs over. So before we move to Missouri, let me jump over their schedule real fast. Before we move over to Missouri, I got Alabama going under. I'm going to sit them at 9, just a half game under the 9.5 win total. And then I'm going to go LSU under. I think closer to 8. I just don't trust that interior defensive line pressure. New OC, new DC. I like the D staff for LSU, but I think it's more of a personnel thing. It's not a Bo Davis, not a Blake Baker thing. I think it's a personnel thing. Another favorable schedule here, Missouri. Missouri opening up with Murray State should win. Buffalo should be a win. Boston College, new coach Bill O'Brien should be a win. Vandy at home. They should be 4-0. Remember, over under 9.5. Bye. At A&M, former Big 12 brother. They didn't really play a lot. I think they played once in College Station since both teams have been in the league now for 10 years. Kind of a toss-up. UMass win. That's 5. Auburn at home. Let's just say they split at A&M Auburn. That's 6. At Alabama loss. They could beat Oklahoma. Let's say they split there. That's 8, 9. You could see 10. The thing it gets me, I think the schedule's there to get Missouri the 10 wins to hit the over for you gambling addicts out there. I don't think just the offense can carry it. Remember, they lost Blake Baker. They lost Tyron Hopper. They lost Darius Robinson, who had a hell of a Senior Bowl. You don't replace defensive linemen like that at Missouri. You just really don't. I think there's going to be a decent drop-off right now. Again, as of February 15th, 2024. You've heard me say that a lot since we started this segment. But again, we got 15 spring practices. We got a spring portal window, and I don't think you can do a whole lot in that spring portal window. So don't think you just flip the whole roster. That's what I've been saying about LSU. You can't fix your defensive tackle depth, talent, personnel issues through a spring portal window. You just can't. But I think the favorable schedule is only one aspect of it. I think motivating your team in today's society, when it's a very individualistic society, I think this is going to be Eli Drinkwitz's biggest challenge. I mean, he's going to be going to all spring to all these tours being like, Coach, you're the man. We got NLI figured out for our high school kids in the state of Missouri. You just won 11 games, most in school history in a season. You beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. They're going to be getting pumped up. But they have issues on defense they have to fix. I don't know. I can see them losing 4 games this year. It's not out of the realm. I'm going to go under here. I think the offense will be fine with Brady Cook, keeping Kirby Moore there. Maybe Alabama flirted with him. Who knows? It's not official. I think that's key. But I think the offense will be fine. Brady Cook, they'll find somebody to replace Blake Schrader. Got enough guys coming back in the offensive line. I like Armand Mimbo at the guard spot. You got Luther Burden, one of the best receivers in the league, top 3 for sure heading into 24. Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper. I think you're fine on offense. You got your OC back, but you lose about a lot on defense. Give me the under. Give me the under here. Give me the under on this Missouri schedule. So in order, how I would trust these teams to hit the over 9.5 win total in order, I would go Ole Miss at 1, go Bama at 2, and I still have Bama under. LSU right after that, I have them under, and I have Missouri going under. So I think out of the 4 teams in the SEC, as we stand right now, according to FanDuel, that they released their over-under season win totals for these 4 teams. 4 teams in the SEC had 9.5, exact same numbers, 9.5. Remember, Ole Miss, Alabama, LSU, and Missouri. And I think it's in that order of who I trust to hit the over. I think Ole Miss, very manageable schedule, talent, building more depth on the defensive line. I think they get to 10. Alabama, I'm going to go just under that half. I'll go 9. Schedule's difficult. Got to factor in a new transition, coaching staff change. I could maybe account for a loss. I think they're going to be fine. But if I had to say today, I'm going to go under. LSU, don't trust the interior defensive tackle depth. I don't think you can go compete for an SEC title doing that. I think if they were to get to over and 10 wins, that's considered competing for an SEC title. I don't think they have the depth to do that on defense. Nothing against Blake Baker. Nothing against Bo Davis. Grand slam hires by Brian Kelly. I think they'll be fine. They'll be better on defense in 25-26. This year, I don't think the personnel's there. It's not going to be the new defensive coach's fault. And then Missouri, I just think they take a step back. Again, last year was Eli Drinkowitz's first winning season at Missouri. It's not like he's been 7-5, 7-6, 8-4, then 11-2. It was 5-5 his first year in COVID. Again, judge COVID as you may. 6-7 in 21, 6-7 in 22, 11 Cotton Bowl win. Can't take anything away from this year. but consistency is what is greatness, or what proves greatness. Let's see how they do this year. I think the schedule's there. But they got to improve on defense, losing Tyron Hopper, replacing a coordinator, and then losing one of the stars at the Senior Bowl, defensive lineman Darius Robinson. Dude, that is how it goes. I just thought that was an interesting little segment to do because you had 4 teams out of the 16 that have the same over-under win total. I like Ole Miss getting over everybody else right now on February 15th. I can't really say that I like them in the moment from that perspective. Covered and everything. It's time to move to basketball, guys. It's time to move to basketball. Let's initially let's just go review quickly what happened this past week during the Tuesday, Wednesday midweek action. Just wanted to pull that up. I'm not going to go way into too much depth, but the biggest upset of the week midweek, Vanderbilt getting a 74-73 win. We're not going to go box score you to death, but just so you can have a visual while we're talking about this. And this is really just a game Vanderbilt let them hang around. I mean, Vanderbilt shot poorly. I mean, 51% from the field, fine. 44%. I mean, I shouldn't say poorly. That's fine. Better free throw percentage than obviously A&M did not play that bad. I mean, Wade Taylor went for 18, Boost Radford 17, Henry Coleman doing his thing, getting some second chance points. They just kind of let. I mean, you look, Vandy shot 30% from. They let Vanderbilt hang around too much, and then Vanderbilt hits almost a video game type shot where he's going up for the game-winning shot, gets knocked out of his hands, double clutches, hits it. Give Vanderbilt credit. Tough place to play. You let a team like Vanderbilt hang around on their home floor late. It's going to happen to you. This is a tough loss. It's a quad 3 loss for Texas A&M right now. Maybe could end up being a quad 4 loss. No way to sugarcoat it. Can't have those kind of losses. They're going to Tuscaloosa to face Alabama and Coleman Coliseum on Saturday. Doesn't get any easier. These are the games that can get you out of the NCAA tournament if you're Texas A&M and Buzz Williams. Can't happen. It did happen. That's what happens when you let a team linger. It can't happen. Speaking of letting a team linger, Florida kind of felt like they lost this game, 82-80. They were up 20. Once again, similar to, if you remember 2 weeks ago, the Florida-Georgia game where Florida was up big. They let Georgia come back, go into overtime. Florida held serve. This is similar. Didn't go into overtime, but LSU had a shot. They missed it at the buzzer with Jordan Wright. I mean, LSU, just a feisty team, dude. At times, Alabama ended up winning by double digits last Saturday, but the game was closer than the score would indicate. Florida, I think kind of the difference was them dominating on the boards, 43-25. But again, defense not really there. Look at lack of focus at times. They can't have that when they go to Tuscaloosa next week or when they go to Athens this week. They get a rematch, speaking of that game, on Saturday. We'll talk about that one in a minute. But Florida, I don't know how you feel about that one. Again, they're one of those teams. I think Florida could potentially get to that second weekend of the NCAA tournament, be a Sweet 16 team, but the focus has to be there when they get these big leads. I mean, the offense is so good. I mean, look at it. Walter Clayton, 21, Tyrese Samuel, 15, Zion Pullen, 14. That's Will Richard only having 9. I mean, they're big guys. Handel Gottner getting better. Riley Kugel only had 6. I mean, this team can score. They just lack focus at times and allow teams to come back, and the defense lets them down. And then Kentucky getting a win over Ole Miss at Rupp. Kentucky needed it. Didn't want to lose 4 straight at Rupp. Ole Miss just didn't shoot well. I mean, outside of Morrell, didn't really do much. Shot 37% from the field, 22% from 3, 63. I mean, Kentucky didn't light it up either. It's kind of an ugly game in its own way, but you can tell Kentucky needed it. Kentucky, a little bit uncharacteristic, 15 turnovers. They're not usually a team that turns the rock over much. But again, this really just came down to Ole Miss just not hitting a bunch of shots outside of Matthew Morrell. I mean, Morrell was 6 for 12, shot 50% from the field, 37% from 3. Not bad, 3 for 8. But outside of him, nobody really hit many shots for Ole Miss. They really didn't. And those games are going to happen. Ole Miss needs to bounce back at home against Missouri. They can't be losing to a winless Missouri team in conference play at home if you're trying to fight into the NCAA tournament. I don't think this game hurts Ole Miss, kind of playing with house money, heading to Rupp. Kentucky definitely needed this more. Stepped up, played a little bit better defense, but Ole Miss just missed some shots, as you can see. That's why they only scored 63 points. Heading to Wednesday night's action. Remember, Alabama and Alabama, Mississippi State were off this week. But you got Auburn just, I don't know what else to say, dismantling South Carolina by 40. Now, is Auburn better than South Carolina by 40 points? No, absolutely not. I don't really know, outside of Meechie Johnson, if anybody could have played worse for South Carolina. I mean, Colin Murray-Bowles played well, 19 points, not bad there. I mean, had 7 boards, so did Michi. But, I mean, look at these numbers from Auburn. I mean, Auburn, again, I said it in the opening of the show, Auburn would have beat anybody in the country last night. UConn, Purdue, North Carolina, Arizona, anybody. I mean, they shot 61% from the field in general and 60% from 3. 60% from 3. 12 for 20. I mean, they could – Bruce Pearl, I would say, and Nate Oates, the 2 coaches in the state of Alabama are the best in the league right now at getting their teams refocused after a bad loss. Where Auburn got embarrassed in Gainesville on Saturday, bounced back. Same with Alabama. Got embarrassed against Auburn, bounced back, played pretty well, especially in the last half of the second half. Ended up getting a double-digit win on the road in the SEC against a feisty, tough LSU team, I would say. So both teams do a really good job, but specifically Bruce Pearl in this game got his team's mindset right. Apparently the jungle was rocking. People already lined up outside the jungle. Remember, College Game Day, the ESPN College Basketball Show will be there for their game against Kentucky on Saturday morning. But Auburn, it's the best game they played all year. South Carolina, probably one of their worst. It reminded me of their loss to Alabama early in conference play. Now, that game was tied at half, and Alabama went on an incredible second half run to beat them by 30. This game was pretty much domination after South Carolina jumped out to an early 5-point lead. But this is a game you kind of just burn the film if you're Lamont Paris in South Carolina. Auburn, you probably don't even look at it either because you don't want your players' head getting too big. Now Bruce will have to get them to come back to earth against Kentucky. It's just kind of the truth. But again, Auburn would have beaten anybody in the country yesterday. Auburn was the best team in the country yesterday. Bar none. But again, that's what they do at home. Best team in college basketball at home. And then another blowout. It's Blowout City yesterday in the SEC. Tennessee getting the 92-63 win at Bud Walton Arena. Jonas Adu was big. Dalton Connect was big. Jordan Gainey, he was the one that really impressed me the most. They got to get going shooting. He was 0 for 3 yesterday. Santiago Vescovi. I want to see a little more from him. But I like how deep, just overall, if someone isn't shooting well, someone's picking somebody up from Tennessee. I mean, Ziegler went for 9, 4 for 8 for the field. Him and Vescovi didn't really shoot a lot of threes. In general, I mean, Tennessee only put up 17. I mean, outside of Tremont Mark, I mean, this Arkansas team is just the chemistry. I mean, you look at the roster and you're like, how are they so bad? How do they only have 3 conference wins? It comes down to chemistry sometimes. I think that's what we forget about in sports. I mean, just this specific game away. I mean, this game was somewhat close at half. And then, Tennessee came out in the second half. It's like, you know what? We're going to put our foot on their throat, put the foot on the gas pedal, and we're going to end this game. And they did. And that's what good, mature teams do, coming off an ugly loss. In a similar situation now, A&M probably played their best game last Saturday against Tennessee. That's what happens on the road, guys. So if you're South Carolina against Auburn, you just burn that tape. They played as good as anybody. Nobody would beat them today. Same with Texas A&M and Tennessee. It's what Tennessee did. I don't think they let that Texas A&M loss beat them twice. That's what South Carolina's going to have to do on Saturday. Let that game – don't let Auburn beat them twice because you're going to have an LSU team that's playing better. And they're gaining some confidence because they're playing with some of the better teams in the league. But specifically this game, Tennessee too much against a Arkansas team. It just is pretty lifeless, and there's no chemistry on this team right now. But moving over to the standings, let's check out the chat real fast. We got a link in here for a high school girls basketball game. Go join it. Cool. Appreciate you listening there, Cinta, Laura. Go back to sharing the screen. Let's go over the SEC standings heading into the weekend. Standings here. So here we go. Alabama stands alone in first place at 9-2, 17-7 overall. South Carolina and Auburn tied. Tennessee a half game back, so we'll include them in there. But South Carolina 9-3, 21-4. Auburn 9-3, 20-5. Tennessee 8-3, 18-6. Florida and Kentucky tied 7-4, 17-7. Both have the same identical records. A&M coming in 6-5, 15-9 overall. Then Ole Miss 5-6, 18-6. Mississippi State 5-6, 16-8. They're playing next in the middle of the week in Starkville, so they'll play there. Ole Miss took the first one at the Pavilion about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Georgia tied with LSU 4-7. Georgia's 14-10 overall. LSU 12-12. Arkansas 3-8, 12-12. Vanderbilt 2-9, 7-17. And then Missouri sitting there winless at 0-11, 8-16. Right now, I think you can pretty much book Missouri, Vanderbilt, Arkansas playing on that sad Wednesday in to open up on that Wednesday night in SEC tournament play. Probably could almost lock in Vanderbilt, Arkansas in that 12-13 matchup they'll play, just depending who could it be. Maybe Georgia or LSU playing Missouri. But we have a really deep race going on here of who I trust from a standpoint to actually win the league. I'm going to skip ahead. Let me go over the net rankings real fast. Let me call them out for you again. These are the net is taken into the NCAA tournament by the NCAA tournament selection committee. Alabama right now going into the weekend is leading the SEC, coming in at 5th overall. Auburn 6th, Tennessee 7th, Kentucky 24th, Florida 32, Mississippi State 34th, Texas A&M 43rd, South Carolina 51st, Ole Miss 61st, LSU 93rd, Georgia 96th, Arkansas 133rd, Missouri 153rd, and Vanderbilt 216. And that is why you do not want to lose to them if you're A&M. But really, to make the tournament, you got to be in that top 70 range. That's where you want to be for your people that aren't real familiar with the net. But just wanted to quickly go over 7 games I was looking at today that I think are going to have a massive impact on how this conference finishes from a championship standpoint. I really think here that these 7 games are going to have an impact, and South Carolina fans may call me crazy, but I think the 3 teams competing for the league title are Alabama, Auburn, and Tennessee. I think you'll see that by these teams lined up. And I think the first impactful one is Kentucky at Auburn. If you're Alabama or Tennessee, you want Auburn to go 1-1 this week. Well, they already demolished South Carolina. Both these games are at home for Auburn this week. Kentucky, Mitchell's probably going to be out. This should be a game I think Auburn wins. College game day will be there. But Bruce has got to get them back down to earth. But I think this game will have a massive impact. If Auburn wins this game, I think Auburn's kind of locking themselves into a top 2 finish. I think they still get that trip to Knoxville, but that'll be for the whole thing. I think Auburn's got the easiest schedule of those 3 teams remaining between Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky. Then the next one, Alabama, Tennessee, and Auburn. The next one, Alabama, Kentucky. Next Saturday, I think why I'm adding this one, and I'll bring it up in the March 5th game for Alabama heading to Florida. I think they need to split those road games. Or maybe even they need to get one of at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, at Florida if you're Alabama and want to win the league. Then they got to hold serve at home. That at Kentucky matchup will have a say. Auburn at Tennessee, that could be for all the marbles as well. February 28th, that one speaks for themselves. Tennessee at Alabama on March 2nd. That Saturday night game, Alabama trying to get revenge from Tennessee taking it to them about a month ago. I think that one's going to be a big one. I mentioned Alabama at Florida. They still play each other twice. Alabama plays Florida at home next Wednesday, but then they return the trip, 3rd to last game of the season, March 5th, or 2nd to last game of the season, March 5th. I think Alabama needs to split those games. And then Tennessee at South Carolina. Tennessee trying to go avenge that loss at Thompson-Boling Arena on March 6th. And then finally, the last regular season finale, Kentucky at Tennessee on March 9th. There'll be a big one. Tennessee's probably going to have that one if they want to win the regular season. Right now, I put percentage. Probably Auburn winning the league because it comes down to schedules. Auburn still gets Georgia twice. They still got to play Missouri, whereas Alabama still has Florida twice. They still got to go to Kentucky, at Ole Miss. Like I mentioned, at Florida. Tennessee comes to them. Alabama needs to win these next 2 if they want to win. They got to hold serve at home. They get A&M, who probably will feel like they have their back against the wall. They can't go 0-2 this week, especially after losing to Vanderbilt. So they'll be coming in hungry. And they get Florida, which I think is a bad matchup for them because of guys like Tyrese Samuel in the front court, Micah Handle gotten on the front court. I think it's a bad matchup from Alabama from a rebounding standpoint. And Florida can score, and Alabama struggles to defend. So right now, I don't see Alabama beating Florida twice. They still have them left. I see Auburn beating Georgia twice. Maybe not at Georgia. But again, that's a game Auburn's going to have to win. These games against at Mississippi State, some of these teams, that's not in the 7, but games fighting for the SEC contention, games like at Mississippi State, at LSU, at Georgia, at Texas A&M, who can be tough on the road. You got to win those if you really want to go win the league. Then you got to hold serve at home. All 3 of these teams are good at home that I'm talking about between Tennessee, Auburn, and Alabama. But those are the 7 games that I wanted to mention. Starting this Saturday, Kentucky at Auburn. That's a big one. College game day knows it. They're going to be there. Then Alabama at Kentucky, Auburn at Tennessee, Tennessee at Alabama, Alabama at Florida, Tennessee at South Carolina, Kentucky at Tennessee. You notice the common theme is those 3 teams, Alabama, Tennessee, and Auburn, all competing for the league. I think that's what it's going to come down to. I'm sorry, South Carolina fans. You're only a game out, I think your schedule in the back half gets a little more difficult. I think South Carolina is good. Most improved team. I think Lamont Paris should be up for it. It should be the SEC Coach of the Year. But I think you fade a little bit on the back end. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. I'm just saying it. Just saying it. Just saying it. Previewing this weekend's matchups. Let's get to it. Let me just share the old screen again. Here we go. Going to Saturday's that matchup. The first one, like I mentioned, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time Zone on ESPN. I have A&M at Alabama. I think Alabama will bounce back here. Alabama's wearing the retro uniforms. That's not why they're going to win. They're pretty cool, though. We talked about it on Monday's episode. Really love the pants. The old block A with the elephant walking through it. Should be a good look on Saturday. Early game. A&M's back against the wall. Right now, Kim Palm has Alabama with an 82% chance of winning this game. I like Alabama. I think I could see it being close in the first half. Alabama pulling away similarly to what they did to LSU last weekend. If Alabama wants to win the SEC, though, can't lose this game. 12 p.m. Central Standard Time tip. Florida at Georgia. This game was close in Gainesville. This is the one where Florida blew the lead, like I was talking about earlier. Went to overtime. Georgia ran out of juice. But right now, Kim Palm has Florida with a 60% chance of winning this game. I mean, Georgia's lost 5 straight. Can't win any close games. Give me Florida. Give me Florida. I think when Florida's playing really well, they're a second weekend team. Sweet 16 team. I truly believe that. That game's on the SEC Network at noon. Then 1 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone, Arkansas at Mississippi State on ESPNU. Ken Palm has Mississippi State with an 88% chance of winning this game. Mississippi State needs this one. Chris Jans and them know this. They've had a bye week. They didn't play midweek. They should be fresh. Tolu Smith should be getting a little bit better condition. I don't like Arkansas's chemistry right now. Give me Mississippi State at home. Arkansas's not going to go win that one. I agree with Ken Palm. So I'm with Ken Palm, 3 for 3 right now. LSU at South Carolina. Ken Palm saying South Carolina with a 71% chance of winning this game. Can South Carolina not allow Auburn to beat them twice? Coming back home will help. This is an LSU team that'll fight. Jalen Cook, if he's healthy, strained hamstring the past 2 weeks. See how he comes back. Trey Hannibal can be dangerous. Will Baker can be dangerous. Let's see how South Carolina's an older, mature team. They should handle this. I trust Lamont Paris in them. But this isn't just to roll the ball out and let's win this thing. LSU can be feisty at times. I like South Carolina, though. Then Kentucky at Auburn, probably the biggest game of the day. 5 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone on ESPN. Remember, ESPN College Game Day for basketball will be there. Right now, Ken Palm has this as an Auburn 82% chance of winning this game right now. So I would say I would agree. I mean, Trey Mitchell being out for Kentucky, one of their leaders, big guys that could get some boards with Auburn probably having the deepest, best front court with Janai Broome, Dylan Cardwell, and Jalen Williams. I could see Kentucky playing one of their better games, but not winning this game. Does that make sense? I mean, like I said, Ken Palm has this as an 82% chance of Auburn winning this game. Let me see what Ken Palm has this, though. Sorry, I'm looking at another game. I didn't have it. But specifically for this game, yeah, I like Auburn at home. I always like Auburn at home. Again, I think they would have beat anybody the other night. Kentucky struggled at Auburn Arena, just like most people. I think Kentucky's going to go play well. I'll be interested to see what the opening line is when it comes out tomorrow. But I think Kentucky will play well, rise to the occasion. Auburn will come in probably a little hungover after that big win against South Carolina. I know people are like, what's Kentucky? They're going to be fired up. I'm telling you, it was a big win for them. The place was rocking from what I heard. I like Auburn to close it out in the second half. And then we got the night kind of evening caps, 2 more games left. Vanderbilt at Tennessee. Ken Palm giving Tennessee a 98% chance of winning this game. 5 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone on the SEC Network. Tennessee at home. Tennessee takes care of business. I don't think Vanderbilt's going to bring that momentum from the big A&M win into the building. And then, I'm sorry, I forgot to write this one down. What is Ken Palm giving Ole Miss in the Missouri percentage chance? Let's look at it. There it is. We got Ole Miss's schedule here. So right now, Ken Palm has it as an 83% chance of Ole Miss beating Missouri. 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time tip on the SEC Network. I think Ole Miss finally bounces back. They kind of end this losing streak. They should win this game against a winless Missouri. They kind of have to. This would be a bad loss, quad 4 loss at home. Ole Miss, if they want to make the tournament, these are the games they can't afford to lose. They can lose at Kentucky. They can lose at South Carolina this year. Can't lose to Missouri at home. I don't think they do. So I'm gonna go chalk with Kim Palm. Agreed with them across the board. I like Alabama at home, Florida until Georgia shows me something different. Mississippi State, Arkansas, there's no chemistry there. South Carolina, be careful, though. Don't let Auburn beat you twice. Auburn, I think a little closer than probably some would expect. Kentucky, I think, may come in. Cal challenging those young cats. They rise to the occasion. I think they will, but it won't be enough to win at Neville. Vanderbilt's not going to carry the momentum. I'll give you Tennessee at home. Tennessee's in the middle of an SEC championship race. They're not going to let Vanderbilt go 2-0 this week with Tennessee stubbing their toe. Then Ole Miss can't lose these games against Missouri. I think they hold serve at home in the Pavilion. So those are my predictions heading in to the weekend. And then finally, baseball on the diamond opening up this week. Let me just briefly go over that schedule. Let's share it, and I'll go over it to you. Then we'll get you out of here, guys. We'll get you out of here. And again, no guests, just been me riding Han Solo here tonight, but I've been enjoying it. I love diving deep into the SEC. But here we go. FAU at Vanderbilt. I mean, looking at my notes here when I was going over the preview here. FAU 34-35 last year. Used to be a little bit better. They had some years, a couple years ago, where they'd be off and on. Vanderbilt, where's the offense going to come from? That would be the question mark. Look for their lineup, see who can kind of step up in big situations for them. I think the pitching is going to be there, but the lineup 1 through 9, I'm interested in seeing. One of the sneakier series here, Kentucky playing South Carolina Upstate. South Carolina Upstate, maybe the favorite to win the Big South now that Campbell was kind of Cinderella team last year with the Camels. Went to a regional, won the Big South. South Carolina Upstate rumored to be kind of potentially that team for the NCAA tournament this year. This isn't an easy first series for Kentucky, especially if you're trying to iron out some kinks. But I think Kentucky should win 2 out of 3 here. I'll be real interested to see them here. Then VMI at the defending national champs, LSU. VMI 26-29 last year. Remember, they beat Mississippi State in a series 2 out of 3 last year in Starkville. That Mississippi State team was not good, so I'm not saying that. But again, LSU, I think people are a little underestimating them. I see why people are not picking them to win the West, and I see some people are up in arms about that. I mean, they're going to lose Dylan Cruz, Paul Skeens, Trey Morgan, guys like that. They have guys they got to replace. But still, this is an exciting team from top to line. I'm interested to see what the South Carolina transfer at shortstop does, Michael Braswell. UNC Asheville at Georgia in a series. UNC Asheville, a pretty 500 club. Wes Johnson, LSU's former pitching coach, now head coach at Georgia. They have Charlie Condon back. Be fun to watch this Georgia team. If they can get the pitching going, look out, they can make a regional. James Madison open up in a regional playing Arkansas. Rumored to be, could potentially be a solid Sunbelt team. Sunbelt, one of the better leagues in baseball from top to bottom. I mean, that's the Southern Misses of the world. Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina, Troy, who's supposed to be pretty good this year. James Madison trying to get in that regional berth there. Arkansas, one of the favorites to win the league. I'm fired up to see Hagen Smith this weekend. I'm always fired up to see him pitch. Expect Arkansas to get a sweep, but again, not an easy series, but should definitely sweep. Miami of Ohio heading to South Carolina. South Carolina should sweep this. Miami of Ohio, probably one of the worst teams that'll be playing an SEC team this week. 21-35 last year. So I expect South Carolina to get that going. I love the South Carolina outfield this year with Ethan Petrie and them. They should be one of the better outfields in the league. Air Force, the former Fighting Paul Skeens heading to Starkville for a series. Air Force last year was 28-21, solid competitive bunch. Mississippi State, I like Hunter Hines. I like the Jordan kid. It's going to come down to pitching. What does it look like this year for Chris Lemonis in a must-have year? They need to get off to a better start. Can't be losing the opening series that they did at VMI last year against a competitive, solid Air Force bunch. Rob Vaughn, his first game at Alabama, coming over from Maryland after winning the Big Ten against Manhattan. Last year, Manhattan was 22-34. Alabama adding guys like Evan Slight coming over some Big Ten transfers. Ole Miss fans will be familiar. Starting center fielder for Alabama this year will be T.J. McCants. He's coming over. Alabama's pitching. They get Ben Hess coming, and he doesn't get hurt. Should be fine. Riley Quick should be good. It'll be interesting. Alabama's got a really solid pitching staff. If they can stay healthy, they should get started off with a sweep at home at the Joe this weekend. St. John's heading to Florida. Florida, just like Arkansas, kind of up for the who should win the SEC this year. They got Alabama transfer Colby Shelton playing shortstop. They obviously got it's just hard not to like. Florida this year, if you want to be completely honest. Jack Caglione is all first team All SEC and first base position. Then he's on the second team as a starting pitcher as their Saturday, Sunday guy, however they put him on. They got some true freshman pitchers that they recruited well to get in that weekend rotation. And then St. John's last year, 28-25, should be a sweep for Florida. Interested to see them. McNeese State at Texas A&M for a 3-game slate. McNeese State last year beat ULL and beat Nicholls State, who was a regional team last year. Should be a good challenge for Jim Schlossnagle and them their first weekend when they're ironing some kinks out. It'll be a good series win. Should get a sweep, though. Eastern Kentucky heading to face Butch Thompson and his Auburn team. Eastern Kentucky last year, not a good team, just below 500, 29-30. Interested to see how Joseph Gonzalez. Auburn's going to need him to be their ace this year if they want to go push. And again, Auburn's always underrated. They always overachieve. They're my pick again this year. People are underrating them. I like what Butch Thompson and them done, what he's built at Auburn. And then Tennessee, I mentioned, probably the funnest slate of this week. They're in that Children's Shriners Classic in Texas and Dallas at Globe Life. They got the 3-game set against Texas Tech starting tomorrow. Texas Tech went up 2-0 in the Gainesville Regional, let Florida come back and beat them. So they were the 2 seed in Gainesville last year. But Tennessee plays Texas Tech. Then Saturday they play Oklahoma, who lost in East Carolina's regional last year. And they play a Baylor team who went 20-35 last year. It's not very good. So it kind of gets hard, and not very tough. Their toughest game will be Texas Tech, and then future SEC brother in Oklahoma on Saturday. And then they should be able to handle Baylor. But Tennessee's going to get the most challenge this year. I'll be fired up to see how Drew Beam and these guys handle this under Tony Vitello and them heading into one of his bigger years. Can they get back to Omaha? Then Missouri at Cal Poly. Cal Poly, not a good team, 21-35. Missouri, new program, new staff. You want to start off 3-0. There's always someone in the SEC that underachieves that first weekend. Is this them? It's just kind of what I'm getting at a little bit. I don't know. Is this who was his Mississippi State last year? And there's always somebody that just underwhelms that first weekend. That there's always someone that overwhelms that first weekend. I'm pulling up Missouri's schedule. You need to go 3-0 here if you're Memphis. They just hired Memphis's coach, Carrick Jackson, who's from Missouri, if I remember right. But he needs to go 3-0. Cal Poly, a team they should go get 3, at least 2 against. Then Ole Miss, just like Tennessee traveling. Ole Miss is, I believe, it's Ole Miss got a 4-game set with Hawaii. Yeah, 4-game set starting on Friday, doubleheader on Saturday, then Sunday at Hawaii. It'll be interesting. Ole Miss already losing Revis for the year, so that's a tough break for them. Ole Miss, just like their big rival in state, Mississippi State, both teams kind of trying to come out of the cellar dweller of finishing 13th and 14th in the league, both coming off winning the national championship too, which is crazy. But should get it started well in Hawaii. I like to see the Rebs and pitching improve, but off to a rough start. Nobody's fault. Xavier Revis tearing his left UCL tendon in his elbow, out for the year. It's unfortunate. Similar to Hunter Elliott last year. It was big for him 2 years ago in Omaha. But that's the opening weekend slate. I like the SEC to get most of them. But don't be surprised if someone's a little underwhelming that first weekend. There always is. Tennessee will be the most challenged in the Children's Shriners Classic in Dallas. Remember, Texas Tech tomorrow, Oklahoma on Saturday, and then Baylor on Sunday. Then Ole Miss. Hawaii's solid team last year. What I have it. I had it in my notes. Hawaii last year went 29-20. So they'll be a competitive bunch, similar to like I mentioned with Air Force. But SEC baseball's here, guys. SEC baseball's here. We're in the middle of an SEC championship race in basketball. A lot of games, 7 games I went over, showing you I think it's a 3-team race, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee. I think my favorite right now would be Auburn due to schedule and their front court depth. We talked about Sean Elliott becoming the 4th head coach of college football to leave his head coaching position to go be a coordinator or position coach, how that's a change in college football. And Shane Beamer hired one of the more underrated coaching staffs no one's talking about. I like the James Coley hire. I like the special teams hire coming over from the Rams. And now I like the Sean Elliott hire with tight ends. And obviously he'll probably help the offensive line. Talked about what 9.5 over-under win total team I liked out of the SEC. There's 4 of them. Ole Miss, I like to hit over. And then the other 3, Alabama, LSU, Missouri, not right now. Still early, but as we stand on February 15th, not right now. We covered a lot. Just a fun episode. No guests for the first time since I've been doing this on the SEC Unfiltered platform. Like I said, Kentucky hired new OC Bush Hamden. I like that. He's fired up about the personnel. I am too. SEC going to 9 conference games. Not shocking. That was inevitable. Covered SEC basketball. Reviewed the midweek action, previewed the weekend action. I agree with Kim Pom. We're going chalk. I agree with him. Usually me and him are pretty split on that, but I agree with him on all 7. We'll go chalk. But again, we've had a blast. This was a fun episode overall for us. Again, I encourage you, go give us the follow in the SEC Unfiltered channel. Go give me on the follow on Mach 10 Sports. You can find us on all the platforms that do podcasting, or if you want to listen to it while, I don't know, you're doing some house chores around the weekend. Well, we'll be up on that too. I'm about to go upload it. But again, I appreciate you joining us on this episode of Mach 10 Sports. You have a fantastic weekend.